Alright, this video is going to be on the topic of hitting rock bottom. I think that probably a lot of us have had our fair share of hitting rock bottom. In regards to my worst rock bottom, because I think I've had a few rock bottoms, I would say it came from my prior cocaine addiction. I had a problem with cocaine and alcohol. I was introduced to it when I was 18. I have got another video on my channel talking about this, but it opened up a whole new world for me, cocaine. It was also interwoven with other addictions, such as webcam sex addiction. I was misusing, I was using alcohol in a very, I wouldn't say I was addicted to alcohol, but I was always using it in conjunction with cocaine, because even though that mix is the mix of cocaine and alcohol is extremely potent and deadly, in many cases, with it creating this chemical, by the way, called cochylethylene or something, which is extremely toxic. So I would recommend against doing that if you're someone that uses cocaine. And you might actually figure out that cocaine's not very fun without alcohol most of the time. It's very anxiety inducing. But to not get off track too much, I've gone into my introduction to cocaine before, but I just want to keep it exclusively on my rock bottom. I've had a lot of issues with depersonalization and psychosis in my life. The first time being when I smoked an extremely large quantity of weed in one go, marijuana, when I just wasn't built for it. I decided, I was going through a hard time and just decided to smoke an entire blunt that long. Just in the space of 5 minutes. I just smoked it like a cigarette because I was a heavy smoker at the time. What followed was just the biggest panic attack and psychotic break where I was terrifying my parents, and I was terrified that I was going to die. My heart was absolutely racing. I just felt disconnected from reality. It was just a true experience of psychosis, and it was pretty awful. And I had multiple experiences like that on marijuana. When it came to cocaine, I've sort of trudged along for a long time, kind of sensing that if I continued along the path of using cocaine, then eventually I would end up killing myself. But I was struggling with suicidal ideation at the time, and I didn't think that it was something that was going to prevent me from continue using. I had the awareness that I needed to stop and that I truly wanted to stop. I had the awareness that I was an addict. And I think I maintained a sense of self-awareness throughout the whole process, but I don't think that self-awareness is necessarily always enough to, it's the tool that you need to use to change, but you need to actually apply it to your actions, which will come when you want to stop being an addict. You have to admit that you have a problem and that you want to stop being an addict, because ultimately it's short-term gratification for long-term suffering and hardship, basically. So yeah, my rock bottom was back in March of 2023. I had used I've talked about it I think twice on the channel before, but I don't think I've ever gone in depth enough necessarily. I'd used about 3 to 4 grams of cocaine within the space of maybe 1 to 2 hours, which is rather a lot, and I'm a pretty petite guy. I'm not particularly tall or heavy. So suddenly, lots of lack of sleep from working night shifts. My whole external reality just felt like it dissolved, and I didn't feel, I knew that the end of my life was coming. My heart was beating so erratically, and I was just terrified. I was so scared, and all I wanted the people I loved to know that I loved them. That's all I wanted. I didn't want to die. I was at the brink of death, and I realized that the experience and life must surely be better than nothingness, right? At least to you when you're alive, you wanna be alive. You wanna live. You wanna have experiences. You don't want to take this one life for granted, even though we do much of the time. And I can tell you from being on the brink of death, anyone that's watching this that may have had a similar experience, that it's not worth it to continue along the path of addiction. And that expression and vulnerability and opening up to people and saying, I have a problem and I'm scared and I need help and I want to help myself, is the most crucial and fundamental thing that you have to do as a person who's suffering, as a person who feels lost, right? Because it's easy to feel lost. It's very easy to feel lost in this chaotic, crazy world. And that night, you know, the police were called and I was detained. It was decided that I wasn't a danger to anybody apart from myself. And I wasn't in possession of cocaine because it had all gone up my nose. And it was decided that I wasn't going to go to prison, but instead I was just temporarily detained. The paramedics were called. A lot of tests were done, ECGs, electrocardiograms, you know, to check my cardiovascular health, and I was okay. On top of that, you know, during going back a little bit when I was having the kind of psychotic break and the cocaine overdose, the physical symptoms and mental symptoms that were together, I was just shouting like, please help me, like I'm gonna die, like I'm dying. I was squeezing the palms of my hands together so that I could bring myself back to I don't know, a more grounded state, and to feel like I was delusional, right? I was punching myself full force in my chest so that I was so sleep deprived, psychotic. I thought that I thought I was already dead, or that I was dying and my heart was stopping. I thought that I was like resuscitating myself by full on just, even though in reality I could have probably killed myself doing that maybe. You know, my mom was right in front of me, my mother was right in front of me, and I was terrifying her as I was doing this. Feeling all of the guilt and the shame and the embarrassment, like, behind, you know, just as the awareness and then and the actions panning out, right? And it's a hard night to reflect on, you know. Emotions matter, okay? Like, emotions, feelings, and the way that others you know, view your actions, your loved ones, you surely have an incentive to make peace with where you're at. An addiction is a natural reaction to, you know, trauma and shame, and then it's the cycle that keeps that going endlessly. So that was my rock bottom, you know, but I've had many other rock bottoms. That isn't even necessarily the worst rock bottom, even though it was terrifying and I was scared, and I scared my mom, and my whole family were worried about me. I've had many rock bottoms, you know. I've been an addict for a long time, not just like to cocaine, you know. I'm 2 years clean, but I've had the victim mentality in a sense, you know. Like, most of us have reasons to be victims, and in a sense we are, and we deserve that empathy and compassion. But simultaneously, I've done terrible things to people. Like, I've hurt people badly, and I've used my own shame and my own addiction and my own you know, addictive tendencies and my own trauma as subconsciously as excuses as to why I've hurt like wonderful, compassionate, just loving people. Even if they didn't have all those attributes, they wouldn't deserve to go through what I put them through. You know, just excessive lying, excessive manipulation, gaslighting. These are things that I've put, like, burdens that I've put on people that I loved, you know, and I've talked about it in previous video, that I felt love for these people, but it was never as tangible action. And I've learned so much in a short amount of time, and I've felt so much shame and guilt that I still feel on a daily basis, but I'm just not letting it define my whole experience and nature and existence. Because the people that you've hurt, ultimately they're not going to want you to, you know, the majority of the time, they're not going to want you to live the rest of your life in self-harm and you know, and this kind of inward thinking and like egocentric way of thinking, where it's not that you have this, like for me it's more like, I think it's less of like a narcissistic kind of inflated ego that I'm better than everyone else, which I have experienced when I was younger. I used to sometimes, when I was a teenager, have more of that deluded way of thinking. But more so for me, I think it's more a feeling that I'm beneath everyone, which is also kind of inherently somewhat narcissistic. So it's like, my problems are much worse than all the other people on this planet. You know, like, I'm so much worse and I don't deserve to live because I've done such terrible things. Well, if you're someone that's watching this and you've done terrible things, then I just want to tell you that you do deserve to live, and that there is value in your existence, separate to the fact that you've hurt people, right? Because I've hurt people really badly, and I would do anything to take it back, in so many circumstances. And you can't go back in time, and you did the things you did because of the way you are, and ultimately you, to a large degree, you're responsible for the way you are, and then to a large degree you're not responsible for the way you are. You have some self-reflection and observation skills that you're going to use to change going forward, but recognize that a lot of it is outside of your control, a lot of it is inside your control. Just focus on what you can control. You know, I've made a pact to myself that I will never ever be the man that I was last year during 2024, the year prior, 2023. You know, just I was awful to people, and I regret it a lot. And if anyone's got anything from this video, because I'm just kind of waffling on at this point, then yeah, give me a comment below. You can just you can like pick apart my views, or you can share your interests. Let me know if you got anything from the video, and yeah, cheers for watching. Bye.